Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are here for another Pilates style program, if I didn't scare you away earlier this month. So Pilates is trending again. I did my Pilates training the last time it was trendy, and I remember my teacher saying, like, everybody was a yoga teacher and now everybody's Pilates teachers, and it sort of fizzled a little bit, and now it's so big again. So we're going to ride that Pilates wave. I am going to forego any chit chat about Ayurveda or seasonal routines, because sometimes we just need to move without managing too much mental load about why we're doing what we're doing. But I do still want to highlight a few key points. One thing that I am surprised about, that I hope you get the value of. I've always been yoga first and foremost, as a relaxation mind-body practice. Pilates has never really done it for me. But I don't care. I still teach it. If people want it, great, fantastic. I have no attachment to the practice. But I am pleasantly surprised when, after doing just exercises, my students tell me that they feel that they are part of something bigger than themselves, a spiritual connection, a deep sense of relaxation. So even though it's not a yoga kind of mind-body practice and that isn't our goal, it's still something that we may achieve. Athletes talk about this too, right? When they're running or training or working with a team, these like deeper kind of transformative things happen to us. So that might happen here today on the mat. Let's be open to being surprised, even though it's just exercises. When we get connected with ourselves, mind-body connection, moving, breathing, these things may happen. One thing I do love about Pilates style breathing is that in yoga, it's conventional to do this relaxed, deep belly breathing. And there is a time and a place for that, but actually we can kind of get a little discombobulated in our movements if that's all we ever do, because we're not, as they say in Pilates, like controlling from the core, moving from the core, or maybe more clear terminology, we're not using our abdominal and deeper core muscles and our back muscles to stabilize as we're moving our limbs through space, which can actually result in back pain, neck pain, just not feeling controlled or stable. As somebody with hypermobility, that's where I really struggle. I need to have more of that Pilates style breathing. Even though I said Pilates doesn't really do it for me, I love Pilates style breathing because it creates that deep inner stability that can, for lots of people, feel like deep inner security and safety. Our body is stable, so it senses safety so that we can be free. Just like in our lives, right? If I have this stable sense of self or home base, I feel free to go out in the world. So if we have this sense of stability in our core, then our limbs can move more freely without kind of bracing or blocking. We'll do a more therapeutic, restorative kind of rehab practice today. So a couple of my teachers, a mentor and a teacher, focused more on this style of Pilates. So it's usually my starting point. I love what I see it do for others. Maybe you will like it for yourself. We focus on that deep core and then allow our limbs and our different joints, different posture muscles to move around in all directions. And that can help us to create new movement patterns, to break out of habitual holding, or what we would call samskaras in yoga, which can help us to breathe more easily. Often there's just this feeling of release, and the breath kind of moves on its own instead of us having to force it. Can be great for chronic pain because this holding pattern can be relaxed a bit and that tension kind of goes, and we replace it with, again, this deep inner stability and foundation. We layer posture and breath on top of that, and hopefully we have a good time. We enjoy it. It feels great. Okay, I think that was everything. Oh yes, our nervous system benefits. When we do a lot of yoga practices, we focus on lifting the heart and inhaling, and maybe you would even like to practice this here with me right now. Really lift the chest high and take a deep breath. And then do more of like a cat stretch and take a deep breath. Depending on who you are and how you did that, I hope that you can feel when we sit tall, the breath is a little bit more shallow. It can give this feeling of uplift, which is nice. But when we stretch the back, we actually have more lung capacity in the back than in the front, which is why those like road cyclists have huge cardiovascular capacity, because they're like really breathing into the back. So when we do this like yoga, soft belly, heart lifted, we can feel actually this kind of anxious, like kind of breathing. Whereas when we do more of a pulled in and full rib cage breath in Pilates with a full exhale, this really like forced exhale, it can help us again to feel more stable, grounded. It gives us sort of a foundation of strength and stability for our bodies and also our moods. So there is this nice kind of therapeutic nervous system connection to our breath I hope you can feel and tap into today. That being said, about our breath, a challenge that is a benefit, sometimes in Pilates we do the opposite of yoga. So if you do a lot of yoga and you are accustomed to always inhaling as we lift and exhaling as we lower, you may be challenged today to do the reverse. Let's be patient and compassionate with ourselves and see it as a coordination challenge. The same as some of these coordination challenges that people will do, to keep the brain young. How about we do our reverse breathing? We'll do a different variety of movement today to reestablish our movement patterns, breathe fully, and keep the old noggin youthful. Okay, our tea. If you live where I live and you can buy President's Choice products, I love this purple cursive feeling calm. Of course, this channel's not big enough to be sponsored by President's Choice, but a girl can dream, maybe one day. It is a mix of chamomile, spearmint, lavender, all these really soothing, calming florals. Tastes great. And is a nice way to kind of welcome spring, I think. All the florals in it. We'll be working on a theme with our essential oils. And sorry, the name of the tea is Feeling Calm. And if you find other blends with the word calm in them, often you will get chamomile, passion flower, lavender, any of these, lemon balm, like really soothing kind of stuff. So it'll be along the same lines. Anytime they add the word calm, you can probably guess that there's going to be like a chamomile floral sort of blend in there. I recently heard lemon balm is recommended for people with a tender heart. And I thought, oh, you know what? These days, I think that's me. So, been drinking a lot of lemon balm. Okay, lavender as our base again. I think vanilla to sweeten it and add sort of a feeling of warmth and enjoyment. A drop of each on a tissue. And we can leave this, since we're going to be on the mat, leave it somewhere near where your head is going to be. You can always tuck it into your shirt or just put it on the mat beside you. And I always want to make this point about allergies. You may not be allergic to this one, but it's top of mind for me. Half my family is allergic to lavender. Just because it's natural doesn't mean it's good, right? We used citrus earlier in the month. That's one of the top allergens in the world. Take care with essential oils. It's springtime. We could also just open the window and get some fresh air in. Okay. That is it for me. That's everything we're going to talk about up top. Let's go relax on our mats. For our movement practice today, we'll be lying on our backs, if possible lying on our stomachs, on all fours, option for side lying, and seated on the mat. As always, take your time coming on down to join me, modify, choose whatever variation fits for you, because it's all about you. Make this work for yourself. Think of it as self-care, right? Here we go. So we'll start in a constructive rest or neutral position, lying on our backs. Let's check in with our posture before we go anywhere. It can be nice to have our hands on our bellies and ribs, just to be aware of our breathing. or we may like to have hands on the mat beside us. We'll be doing movements of all parts of the spine. So the head should be in a relatively neutral position. You may need to take your ponytail out or have a folded towel or something underneath the head. We can walk our shoulder blades underneath the back if they're scrunching up towards our ears, so the back of the neck is long. Usually we walk the feet out a bit further, so there's a wider angle in the back of the knees. Let's pause for a moment here. Checking in with our breathing. Noticing where in the physical body we feel the expansion of breath the most. Often in our yoga style classes, we encourage belly breathing, really inflating the belly. So that may be where you notice it today. Maybe noticing it in the chest. Sometimes just by lying flat, it feels like the chest is really popping up. You might also notice it in the side of the body, side of the waist, side of the ribs, feeling the ribs pressing out into the inside of the arms. Or because we're lying on our backs, you might really notice the body pressing down into the mat on the inhale. And you might also feel the breath somewhere else, maybe feeling movements of shoulder blades, collarbones, tops of the shoulders, the throat. And letting that be where we focus our attention. And just for fun, with open curiosity, we'll see how that shifts and evolves as we put our bodies into different shapes. Stretch what's tight, strengthen what's lax, and move through our practice. So we'll start with movements of the spine and related body parts. We can leave hands on belly or hips. And I usually go bottom to top. So we'll do movements of the pelvis here, but let's notice it in parts of our spine. So we'll start with the low back, flattening the low back into the mat, and then allowing it to pop up. And as we do this, like if I do a really exaggerated one, you can see as I flatten down, I'm sliding my body up the mat. And as I pop the belly, I'm pulling myself down and creating this bubble. You do not have to do it that big, but just notice that as we move, it'll create ripples through the rest of the body, and that's totally normal. And if we don't want to leave our hands here, we can leave them beside ourselves or even holding onto the edges of the mat. Again, just for somewhere to land. Okay, so we're tucking the tailbone under, low back presses into the mat, taking our tailbone towards the mat so our low back pops up. And I actually think of this as a movement of the pelvis. So we're tilting the pelvis one way and then the other way. One of my teachers described the pelvis as a bowl of water. So we're taking the bowl of water and tipping it out one way, and then tipping the water out the other way. So our goal for this is to get mobility going. If we've been stiff, kind of locked down in this area, but also to bring body awareness to where you tend to hold yourself. Do you tend to hold really tucked under or popped back? And do you do that by tightening certain muscles? So usually as we press the low back down, we're squeezing the glutes, the muscle of the bum, or you may be really tight in the low belly or somewhere else. You might also be executing that movement by really jamming the heels into the mat or dragging the heels towards your bum. Just things to notice. Generally in Pilates we move from the core, so let's see if we can use our abdominal muscles to tuck the tailbone under. and hold that containment of our abdominal muscles as we release and move in the opposite direction. Let's move our pelvis in a different direction. So we've been going back and forth. Let's take our pelvis in a circle. So this might be quite easier for you, thinking like a belly dancer, if you've done that sort of movement before, circling the pelvis. And really, I'm not doing much if you're watching me. Mostly it looks like I'm lying here, so I'll try to lead you through with my voice. Again, we might picture our tailbone or the pelvis as a bowl. Generally, we talk about pelvic clocks. So we take the tailbone to 12 o'clock. So we're tucking under, flattening the low back in like we just did. And then we take the tailbone over to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As we get to 6, we have this little bubble of air underneath our backs. It might be a microscopic little bubble, depending on how your body is built. And then we go the other way. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We can release back to neutral, and then we take it the other way. Again, we might want to take our hands on our hips, tucking under, we take it to 12. You can go clockwise or counterclockwise, but we're drawing a circle with our pelvis or with our tailbone, whatever way this makes sense to you. Think of it as hula hooping through the pelvis, right? That circular kind of hula girl movement. Even if it's not a large range of motion, we're still waking up those same muscles to move through this. If you still have really no idea what I am doing, I will show you. We're taking the pelvis in a circle one way and in a circle the other way. Again, like a belly dancer. If we just have this sort of stiff little circle, we're still getting there. We're still making it. It's all good. We will start to do this movement as well in the rib cage and in the head. We'll finish with the easiest one. All right, so we've worked on our mobility through the pelvis. Let's aim for a neutral position here. Tricky to figure out for all of us, but generally, there's a little bit of space in the low back. So we're not jammed down, we're not really tucked under, we're not clenching our glutes, and we're not sort of flopping and popping. So the sacrum, the muscle in the back of the pelvis, is flat on the mat. Our hip bones are pointed straight up instead of pointed sort of towards the top of the head or down towards the feet. And it's often a point where we can feel that our abs pull in without being smushed. Okay, I hope these things help. Let's do the same thing with the rib cage. I think this is actually probably the most awkward, like our cat and cow, but we're stuck on the mat, right? So we can pop the chest and then drop the chest, pop the chest, and then drop the chest. We can do it yoga style, inhaling as we lift, and then exhaling as we drop the ribs and contract the abdominals. So we have this space between our ribs in the front and we're dropping them closer together. Will this have a ripple effect? Yes. So as I lift my ribs, I can feel the back of the neck pop down into the mat. I can feel my tailbone kind of pop a little bit. And then as I drop the ribs, I feel tailbone tuck under and my chin lifts. So everything is connected. I picture like a slinky, you know, you move one part and the rest of it moves around as well. We can take the ribs side to side as well to feel that movement, and you may be able to draw a little bit of a circle with the ribs. Generally, this is, like I said, where we're quite locked down and we have the mat that might be another form of resistance, or the mat might be really good feedback for you, which is why I still do it here. So if we want hands to our ribs, we can do that. We pop the ribs to 12 o'clock. We take the ribs around the circle. At 6 o'clock, we're dropped down, and then we take it out the other side and up to the top. We can go circling both ways. And maybe you notice in your mind something uncomfortable here. Sometimes people get really impatient with these movements or frustrated. It's tough to move through them, or it feels like, am I really doing anything? So let's see if we can cultivate still a yogi mindset, non-attachment, non-judgment, no expectation or competition. Let's be open to the experience of moving our bodies through a range of motion and seeing what happens as a result. And that may mean that this practice is not for you. I'm totally okay with that. Pilates is not my thing either, but it might be the perfect practice for you. So let's see. All right, so we've got neutral now through our pelvis and our rib cage. Instead of the ribs being popped, we've got a little bit of a drop here so that our abs are contained. Hands wherever we want to put them to feel secure and have mind-body connection. We might actually like to take fingertips to forehead, or for whatever reason people often do fists gently to the forehead. I guess it helps with sort of muscular contraction. And we'll do movements of the head. So let's nod our heads yes. So as we're doing probably the most simple movement we've done so far, right? Let's check back in with our breathing, seeing if our breath can be full without forcing. We have a little bit of abdominal contraction to support ourselves from within. So belly button draws down to the spine, pelvic floor lifts up. Okay, I'm gonna layer on more challenge, drawing a circle with the nose. And again, this practice may feel quite boring for you. It's not much to look at if you're watching me. I'm not really doing much at all. But as we can do these gentle flowing movements and breathe evenly, relaxing, surrendering into the mat, again, there is this nervous system involvement where you may feel things really winding down, settling down, grounding, feeling comfortable. That's food for thought if this works for you. Okay, we can draw an infinity symbol, like a figure 8. We can write our name. Okay, again, making our brains work. I don't know why I always write in cursive when I do this. I guess because I don't feel like I can lift my pencil off the paper because my head is staying on the mat. I don't know. Okay, so write your name one way, cursive, printing, mystic symbols, I don't know. And then do the mirror version when you write it backwards. We can also spell our names backwards, mirrored version and not mirrored version. If you have a long name, of course, maybe it'll take a little longer. Take as long as you like to figure this out and write it out. Okay, so we can keep going with movements of the head. You might want to turn the head side to side, or, okay, forgive me, always a yoga teacher, stick your tongue out, spell your name with your tongue, spell your name backwards with your tongue. See what happens as you move your tongue. I'm not going to tell you until after. Okay, we'll all look very silly together. Here we go. As we stick the tongue out, relaxing the jaw. Take a couple fingers to the jaw to make sure that we're doing that. Spell it backwards, do the mirror version, draw a circle, draw an infinity symbol. I don't know how long your name is. Whenever you're done doing movements of your head and neck and tongue, you may have felt the urge to exhale or sigh. There is an involvement in our vagus nerve as we move our tongue and breathe deeply, and it can loosen up tight structures in the mouth, neck, and throat, but it can also help our pelvic floor engage. So you may have noticed any of those things. Okay. As far as I am concerned, we are warmed up. We did movements of our cervical spine when we do the head, our thoracic spine when we do the ribs, our lumbar spine when we do movements of the pelvis, and then our sacrum and our tailbone are along for the ride. We are set, we are ready. Let's do some 3-dimensional breathing. Again, we may like to bring hands to our ribs, picturing our rib cage as an accordion or anything that blooms open like an accordion. A flower blooming, it's springtime. Letting the rib cage expand out to the side into our hands. Noticing a lifting in the chest as we're keeping our shoulders down and back, and also feeling the breath expanding in towards the mat in the back of the body. And remembering that neutral through the low back and rib cage. Our ribs it might feel like they're dropped down compared to our usual yoga, always breathing with a back bend, but we're doing it to control from our core, to contain our abdominals. Everything is wrapped up with our abdominal muscles, supported and secure. So we can come back to our 3-dimensional breathing as a reset at any point, or any of these other circular or flowing movements to reset if we are ready. Finally, let's get into some more challenging poses. We can have palms down or holding the edges of the mat, rolling bridge. So we tuck the tailbone, squeeze our glutes and our abs for support. We inhale to prepare, and then we exhale as we roll into our bridge pose. This old classic, one vertebra at a time. We squeeze to the top, and then we roll down. So if you're used to yoga practices with me, usually we hinge. We inhale, spine stays straight. We can pop the ribs at the top, and we exhale, lowering down. For today, it's the reverse, making our coordination work. Inhale to prepare. With our exhale, shrink wrapping our internal organs, tucking tailbone, rolling up the spine, and resisting the urge to pop the ribs so that we're using our abs like everything is a crunch, but using our breath and our abs instead of doing actual crunches. Seeing how this translates into our shoulders. Hopefully we can still be broad across our collarbones, and the muscles of the neck are relaxed. Back of the neck is long on the mat. We can give it a few more here. So we're waking up the muscles that support the low back. These are the muscles of our bum and our belly. With that exhale, we're waking up our deep inner core muscles. So our muscles of our belly, our abdominal muscles, are multi-layered. We have that shredded six-pack abs right in the front. Then we have our obliques that are a little bit more on the side. And then deep within, wrapping across the front, is our transverse abdominis. And all these different layers work together. They have slightly different functions, but they work in symphony. And they also work, let's say, in symphony and cooperation synergistically with the other muscles of our trunk and torso. Our inner thigh muscles, glutes, low back, everything has to kind of pull together. It's a community environment of muscles. We'll draw knees to chest to release our glutes. We'll do some more circular movements. We can start with our feet, drawing circles with our toes or wiggling our toes, pointing and flexing. Let's take our hands to our knees. We may have done this before in a very floppy yoga fashion. Let's treat it like a core exercise, drawing. Each knee gets its own circle. We can go both directions, or we can kind of do an egg beater coordination challenge, making sure we go both ways. Feeling confused is part of the fun. let's go ahead and plant the feet down. We'll lengthen just the right leg rested along the mat, pointing the toes, long body stretch. We'll reach the arms in the other direction. Containment of the core. Instead of letting the ribs pop up, we drop the front of the ribs down so the abs are crunching. And we maybe before thought we had good overhead range of motion, but actually what we had was a back bend to help us get there. So when we drop the ribs, we might notice, oh, the arms are kind of locked before they get all the way there, and that is fantastic information. All right, we'll take it to the other side. I'm planting right, extending left, pointing the left foot, big reach overhead, keeping our core muscles strong so the ribs are knitted together in the front. And then we're coming back to neutral. Might feel good to windshield wipe the legs to release that. So you can see we're moving through gentle range of motion, opening up, movement or sensation of openness in the body. Get a little more ambitious with some of our leg movements and deeper stretches, but for now, let's start to make our way to a seated position. We can come to one side and press up. Let's check in with neutral again here. So take as long as you like, resetting, coming up, doing anything else that we need to do. Re-engaging tall spine. Maybe. Usually you do. Again, this like very yoga, high self-esteem, expansive practice. Let's check in with how that feels. You may also be feeling really tight, kind of resting back. They call it sacral sitting. The big muscle in our, or the big bone in our pelvis is the sacrum. You might actually be sitting back on that bone instead of actually on your cheeks. So we might need to prop a little bit for the next pose that we are going to do. We'll come into mermaid pose. So we can take our feet towards the right. I know this isn't for everybody. You could do a variation of this seated however it is comfortable. And if we do want a little bit more propping, we can actually roll up one side of the mat, or you can sit on a cushion or a blanket. And it might be much more comfortable to bring a bit of height under the hip. I don't know how your body settles down. You might actually want the rolling to be on the other side, so it's under the low hip. You can take time, adjusting however we need to, so we can kind of feel, okay, settled, because we're gonna be here for a moment. Okay. With propping or no propping, the legs are coming to a comfortable place. We could be seated any other way. We'll do a variation of mermaid and one with a fun name, Hello Sailor. So for our mermaid stretch, if our legs are to the right, it's our left arm that we're moving. Now my mat has moved. There we go. Okay, left arm up, big breath up and over. We'll control from our abdominals as we come back through center. And then the right arm is gonna twist to open. Inhale so that we feel stretch across the front of the shoulder. And then we come back through center. Little coordination challenge, let's go. So let's match breath to movement. Like I said, in Pilates, sometimes we do the opposite. So we might be exhaling where you would normally inhale in yoga. So in that case, that would be this kind of opening movement. We would inhale, exhale to twist and Hello Sailor. Coming back through center and taking it the other way. And this is so non-traditional Pilates. Go whatever speed feels good, whatever range of motion feels good, whatever pattern of breathing feels good. Traditional Pilates is much more prescriptive. But if we're thinking restoration, nervous system support. Our nervous system feels safe when we sort of march to the beat of our own drum. Move and breathe in a way that feels good for you here today. That might be different than tomorrow, might even be different than later today. And that being said, it might be the same every time. Okay, one more hello sailor. And we'll do a variation of mermaid push-ups, but it's actually intended to be a stretch for our right QL muscle, sort of the low back towards the hip on the right-hand side. So we turn ourselves so that we are in a bit of a twist away from the bottom thigh. In this case, it's our left thigh. We can plant our hands. I don't get a lot of rotation out of this one, so you might actually be coming much more forward. However, we need to be to get a nice stretch sensation back here. And it is called a push-up, yes, because we can do push-ups, or we can just lower down to the point where we feel a good stretch. We might be down onto the forearms instead of the hands. Tuning in to this back hip area. Finding a good spot to land. And then settling in, breathing easy. We are in maybe what feels like a bit of a wonky position. Again, we use that exhale, drawing the abdominal muscles up and in. They used to always say scooping the abs. I like to picture sort of like an ice cream scoop kind of movement. If that makes sense for you, go ahead and take it. And then we're ready for the other side. Okay. Might be a little clunky to swing the legs around. Taking our time. We could always take a drink break, move our props, sit on a cushion, sit on a yoga block, whatever else we need. Thinking about movement patterns, habit patterns, retraining ourselves to move in space. Anytime we're working only one side of the body or flowing back and forth, you probably notice asymmetries in yourself. Let's take it as food for thought instead of harsh criticism. Oh, I should be perfectly symmetrical on both sides. Let's see what happens as we move through. Okay, so we take right arm up. Right hand is over top of our left feet. Inhaling. Up our left feet, our feet on the left side. Hello, sailor. We're opening. Okay, and then readjusting any way we need to accommodate the movement on this side. So we're different from one side to the other, right? Especially if we think about our daily tasks like driving. If you drive stick shift, you know you are not the same from one side to the other. Little things like blow drying our hair. We only do usually with one side, right? Hairbrush in one hand, round brush in the other, or whatever the activity is that you do that is asymmetrical. So our bodies are going to be asymmetrical. That might mean one side twists more deeply, right? If you tend to put your hand on the back of the passenger seat to turn and check your blind spot, or if you always walk your dog with the leash in the left hand, it's going to kind of yank your body in different directions. So we accommodate for that. We might be doing an asymmetrical mat practice to help our bodies be more symmetrical due to our asymmetrical life practice. So we could spend more time in any tight spots instead of making it equal side to side. Okay, let's do our mermaid push-ups. Rotating to one side, knowing that we may have more or less rotation on this side. Picking a variation that feels good. Aiming for stretch in the left QL now. We can be up on our hands. Could even be seated and be getting a huge amount of stretch. We could twist more. We could lower through a push-up. We could be down on hands or forearms. We can play around with it, no rush to be here. Especially on YouTube, right? You can pause the video, rewind, try it again later, see how you're feeling, ignore me completely. We have lots of options. Careful that the head isn't hanging, pulling the nose back so that the muscles of the neck are working. We also could have some involvement of our tongue here, pressing the tongue against the roof of the mouth to engage our deep throat muscles, deeper neck muscles. When we come to our breathing, we could think of that ice cream scoop, the accordion of our rib cage. Sometimes the trunk is described as an accordion on top of a water balloon, so we could be using our abs to squeeze the water balloon. We don't want it to burst. We're just adding some pressure onto the water balloon. We'll make our way back up to seated. And in a way that feels good, we'll move through cat and cow. So you could be seated for cat and cow. If we are okay, on all fours, we're coming onto all fours. Pressing down through the tops of our feet, pressing down through our hands, the length of each finger, the tip of each finger, soft bend in the elbows. We're moving through cat and cow, same as we always do. Just that Pilates took this one directly from yoga, so we can inhale to prepare. And like our rolling bridge, we exhale to draw the abdominals in. We're tucking the tailbone, scooping the belly, full exhale. Really push, 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 push until the lungs are empty. Dropping the chest towards the front of the hips, tucking the chin. And then we reverse the movement as we inhale. Lifting the tailbone, lengthening the back of the legs, squeezing the back of the body, lengthening the abs forward without kind of dumping our internal organs out. So as we exhale into cat, we create length through the back of the body, strength through the front of the body. And as we inhale into cow, the opposite, really squeezing the back of the body as we lengthen the front of the body. And then I always like to find any tight spots on the root. So I'm always like a little tighter on the right side. I don't want to go totally straight. I like to go a little to the right, have some freedom of expression to explore, stretching that out. And then as I come forward into cow, you might like to do the same kind of thing. Instead of going straight back and forth, exploring off to the sides, front and back, shifting our weight. Instead of our habitual habit patterns, doing everything the same way all the time, can we seek out those tight spots to find balance? Especially if we think about, what has your body been through? I had my appendix removed, so I'm never going to be the same on the right side of my body ever again. You may have had, I think about all the clients I've had with old hockey injuries, right? Or more recent injuries. Car crashes are so common, unfortunately. You may have had a little minor surgery or a more major one. So our lives are unbalanced and our practice can be unbalanced to bring the body into balance, if that makes sense, right? So if the right shoulder is always tight, we spend a little extra time loosening up the right shoulder. The practice is unbalanced, the right shoulder gets more attention, but the body becomes balanced as a result. Okay, if we're okay lying on our bellies, let's lie on our bellies. If not, we can actually do the same kind of practice, moving our arms and legs either on all fours or seated. You'll see what I mean in a moment. So let's come on down to our bellies. We've done a lot of work kind of locking this down, either passively in our lives or consciously a moment ago with our breathing. So let's lengthen our bellies. And this is one of those poses that I have started recommending to almost all of my clients, almost all of the time, as balance for our lives. So if you're spending a lot of time texting hunched over, we could actually spend time on our phones like this or watching TV like this to bring balance to our bodies, right? Just like when we were kids, maybe we would watch TV in this kind of movement, why not do it now? And the answer to why not might actually be quite lengthy, but let's see, let's try it out. A couple other things we can throw in here. We can bend our legs. So this is where, if we're on all fours, we could do movements of the leg, supporting our lymphatic system in the back of the legs. We can stay propped or sleeping crocodile. So we can lower down. And then we're bending and straightening the legs. So we're getting a pumping movement going through the back of the legs. Like I said, we can be up or down. And our classical Pilates style is to do 2 pumps and then lower using the core so that we don't have a huge amount of movement on the body front and back. So we're super strong, pressing down into the mat with the upper body, drawing the abs in. As we have this pulsing in the back, we can do pointed or flexed feet. And then let's go ahead and lower down. Maybe windshield wipe the legs to release the back a bit. We'll rest the legs and move the arms. So again, if you're not comfortable lying on your stomach, maybe this one is done seated instead to loosen up the front of the underarm and shoulder and strengthen the back of the underarm and shoulder. So we can have our feet planted as wide as the mat or close together for additional support and inner thigh work. We can press the feet together, really zipping up the thighs. We can take our hands so that our arms are in a cactus position, and we can leave the head in kind of a cobra position. And I'll show us a bunch of different options. So we can pull one arm away from the floor at a time. Sometimes we do more of a Y shape, pulling one arm away from the floor at a time. So we're really squeezing the back of the shoulder and using the lower body for our foundation. And then when we're ready to do so, we can either rest on the mat and windshield wipe the legs again, or rest back in our child's pose. Seeing if this has done anything to the range of motion in our child's pose. Sometimes it opens up a bit more space. And once more, we'll come to a seated position. Seated any way that's comfortable. Obviously, I like to sit on the heels, but that does not mean that you have to. Okay, we'll see what that did to open up our chest expansion. Let's take the arms out to T, squeezing back. We could leave our arms here, or we can reach in behind. We could be taking fists to the back of the pelvis and pulling the elbows together. We could take our fingertips to the mat and push down, or we can interlace the hands. Now, resist the urge. Sometimes in yoga, we just pop the chest without actually stretching the shoulders. So let's aim for that shoulders down and back. We'll start with our abs contracted, so that we're pulling back just the shoulders with a neutral spine through the torso. That might really change the angle of this movement. You might have actually all this time not been doing a chest expansion and just been doing a belly stretch. So let's see what happens if we keep those ribs knitted down and together and punch the hands down and reach them back, with or without the interlace, right? And then as a natural extension of that, if the heart wants to lift, it can, but we're not just like a cow pose, kind of pushing the chest to the sky. Okay. Let's release. Some side lying movements. We'll take it down, take it to one side. I will face you so that makes sense, and I'll refer to it as our top and bottom leg. Let's keep it comfortable for the head and neck, whatever we need to do to support the head. We have our knees bent, and it's a variation of a clamshell or clam exercise. so that we open the knees, squeezing the back of the hip, and then resisting gravity, we release. So let's figure out the breathing. Let's do it both ways, and you tell me which helps control more from this outer hip muscle and our abdominal muscle. Does it make more sense for you to inhale open and exhale close, or reverse? Exhale open and inhale close. Personally, I like inhale open and exhale close. You be the judge. Okay, inner thigh lifts. There are a couple different ways that we can do this. For comfort's sake, we can plant the top leg so that the back foot is on, so the foot comes to the back flat on the mat, and then straighten the bottom leg. If we want to stretch that muscle we were just working, the leg comes in front and the foot can plant. Theoretically, we could do this in a more gentle fashion, like how we do our supine twist, bringing our top leg just along the body to rest on the mat so that our inside leg is free to lift. It's just not usually done that way. I don't know why. So it's up to you. Plant the foot in behind, plant the foot in the front, or drape the leg across. And if we plant it in front, we can actually hold on to the ankle so that the leg doesn't slide away. Okay, I will keep it traditional for our purposes here today. Our lower leg, let's flex it. We lift and lower. Generally, we exhale as we lift, inhale as we lower. We can incorporate movements of the foot, pointing to lift and flexing to lower. We can go backwards, flexing to lift and pointing to lower, but the breath stays the same. Leading with our heel. Inner thighs are working hard, usually a neglected area. This can often help with outer thigh tightness, is to redirect the tightness to the inner thigh. So I love these ones. All right. We will rest, we will switch sides. Feel free to just flip along your belly to make it to the other side, or if you want to stay facing me, reorient yourself in your home, however that makes sense. As we swing the legs around, if you decide to swing the legs around with me, you might feel a stretch through those muscles that we were just working. Okay, so we make ourselves comfortable on this side as well. We start with our clam. So supporting head and neck, relaxing the shoulders, slide the shoulder blades away from the ears. Sometimes this bottom shoulder really pops up. Let's see if we can actively draw it down. Instead of just being floppy around the mat, we're still controlled in our core, so we're not super dumping the body into the mat. Okay, might want to take hand to the muscle that we're working. Let's match breath to movement. One breath as we open. One breath as we close. You be the judge. We can exhale up and inhale down, or vice versa. Using the breath pattern that helps us to have the best mind-body connection with the outside of the hip and the core. So I know this one is often recommended for pelvic floor issues, using the breath to help control with the pelvic floor. But this external hip muscle is actually really important for balance as well. So you may benefit from exhaling with the lift to squeeze this muscle as a way of improving standing balance. Again, something to think about, something to play with. We've got some variety going on this month, moving around, enjoying the Pilates trend, seeing what happens. Okie dokie smoky. Let's lower down. Let's see how our hips feel on this side. For the sake of comfort, do we want to plant the top leg in behind? Do we want to drape it across? Or do we want to plant it in front? And if we can't quite reach the ankle, we can hold our pant leg, something like that. Okay, so option 1, we lift the leg. Option 2, we lift the leg. Or option 3, to lift the leg. We start with a flexed foot, squeezing the inner thigh. Inhale to prepare. Remember that the ribs are expanding. To accommodate a deep inhale, we have the full exhale as we lift. Instead of the toes pointing up, we got the heel pointing up. We can switch the movement so that we're flexing up and pointing down. And then we can do it the other way so that we are pointing up and flexing down. Challenging our coordination, not always doing things the same way, the same kind of movement all the time, getting variety going, new habit patterns, new body awareness. So let's release this. I don't know where you are in your space, how you've flipped up, around, and back, but we're gonna make our way to lie on our backs. For me, it's easy. I'm just gonna flip on my back. For you, go somewhere you can see me, you can figure out what's happening, what's going on. We can reset, windshield wipe the legs, knees to chest, anything else that feels good. We did some work for the outer hip and thigh. Let's do a variation of our sleeping pigeon here. So we'll take a right ankle over left thigh. Let's do our sway side to side without fully letting our belly relax. Little core containment here. And this might be the perfect range of motion for you. If we're craving greater sensation, we can let the foot tap one way and the knee tap the other. Let's let our foot come all the way down. Left hand can hold right ankle. And our right hand is free to land wherever it's comfortable. Using an exhale so we can draw from the core. We're coming back through center. Switching sides. Left across right. Gentle sway. We might like to hold the outer edges of the mat again for support. Large range of motion or small. We can continue to sway or to let the left foot land on the right side of the mat, resting here. And let's see if it does feel like a nice resting place, right? So I've been talking about the system, our inner systems, whatever that is for you. So our connective tissue, our central nervous system, our muscles, all these things that sense safety. Even your mood, whatever's going on today, maybe you're feeling really ungrounded. Forcing the body into stillness might not be the right choice. maybe that gentle sway feels really stabilizing and supportive, you can always stay there. This is why we offer variations. I don't want to overwhelm you with variations, but I also don't want to be too prescriptive and tell you where to put yourself. All right, self-care through options. So when we feel balanced on this side, we'll come back through center, doing whatever feels good to reset. We've got one more here. We did some inner thigh work, didn't we? Let's stretch what we worked. We'll start from a variation of water flow. So the arms are alongside the mat. We use the core strength to lift our legs so that our shins are parallel, knees over hips. And then we fully extend to our waterfall position and let the feet fall open so the legs are in a V. And we can use our hands as a kickstand to catch our legs so that the inner thighs are stretching. I chose to do Pilates style today instead of our usual happy baby or dead bug. Feel free to bend the legs. Feel free to rock side to side or bend and straighten the legs. Or we can have bent legs and supporting our legs here. But the idea is we're getting stretch for the inner thighs after we worked them in that side lying work. Still a little challenge for our core. We are not completely done working our core even though we are stretching. So we have this core, center, inner support through everything we do, right? Our inner resource we can take with us everywhere we go. We'll bring it up through center. Okay, finally, balance. We'll release our bellies, sleeping butterfly. We can have hands to belly. We can close the eyes. Might let the hands land somewhere else. We might let the legs land somewhere else. This is only my suggestion, right? Feel free to stay here as long as you like, but I'll guide us through a brief breath practice. So we're noticing the belly, letting our abdominal muscles relax. And let's feel safe relaxing our abs here. So as much as I said we contract our abs for a sense of safety and security, we've now moved our bodies through a variety of different shapes, patterns, breath practices, so that now we're supported by our new habit pattern. So even if we are lying passive on the mat, our bodies are settling into a new shape. So we're being held and supported by our structure. And now the breath can be relaxing, releasing, or supported by the mat. And if anything doesn't feel good, doesn't feel supported, feels ungrounded, feel free to move to a place that does feel good. So we could be in our neutral or constructive rest position again with the feet planted or the knees knocking in. We could be lying on the side, sitting tall, lying on the belly. And then let's see how full an inhale we can do. Really push, 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 waking up our in-breath. Take another little sip of air once the lungs are full. And then we can sigh out with the exhale. If you like that pattern, give it a couple more. Full inhale. Another little sip of air. And then sigh out on the exhale. So I'll leave you here. I'll leave a little extra music. Stay as long as you like. Feel free to sit up with me if you'd like to finish together, but no need to do so. We can bring hands to heart center in our Namaste hands. Sending gratitude inward. Thankful for our bodies, everything we're capable of doing. Thankful for our own inner resources. Sending compassion and forgiveness to our bodies for anything that feels out of alignment, not quite perfect, not symmetrical. Knowing that that is okay, that is part of the human experience. Giving ourselves a little pat on the back for our work here today. And thank you so much for joining me. Namaste.